Hey everyone, and welcome to the next edition of the Snapchat. I'm joined today by none other than Cozy Snap. Cozy, I have a question for you. When you're not playing Marvel Snap and you need to relax, what is it that you do in California that just takes the stress away?
Dude, this line of work, let me tell you, you don't get a lot of that. When I'm not doing that, or editing, or working towards Snap stuff, my two guilty pleasures. I hate to bring it up again. I've been going to the zoo a lot. Got a season pass there. Take my son there a lot. It's just a great place to take a little baby. Tears of the Kingdom has consumed me. It is my new, I have 2 hours. I get lost. I try to forget about it. It's the perfect game. I haven't had a game in a long time that has me forget about what I'm doing, and I love that. I think it's important to do that. So that a lot. I have not gotten to surf as much as I like to, but I've gotten to surf went twice last week. But yeah, surfing, dude. Yeah, how about you?
You went surfing twice last. That's a lot of surfing.
Yeah,
but are you actually surfing, hitting waves? You're out there doing the whole
Yeah. I mean, I hope I don't look like that, but yeah, dude. It's the perfect exercise. It's a perfect way to wake up if you go at the crack of dawn, and it is refreshing. It's peaceful. It's everything at once, dude. I love it. I can't recommend it enough.
You know what? I've been playing Diablo 4 here and there, but not much. I can't keep up with my buddies. It'll be one of those things I'll crawl in bed at pretty damn late, and I'm still amped up from editing or something, so I'm just still kind of awake. I just need something for 20 minutes to quietly nod off, and I'll put on Diablo. I can't play hardcore because I usually fall asleep. And then later in the night, I'll kind of open my eyes and look up and realize that I'm dead and I've been sleeping for 25 minutes or something like that. So yeah, for me, I know I actually have Tears of the Kingdom. I haven't even played it yet, but it's been Diablo 4 I've been dabbing into.
Once you get into Tears, it's dangerous, man. It is so much fun. It's a wild game, man. Well, I'm excited to talk about our subjects today, buddy. We got some good ones on your side.
Yeah, we do. We're going to be talking today about the best decks for Infinity Conquest, the best turn 1 and 2 openers in Marvel Snap, and then, of course, the most underrated cards from July 2023, which I'm actually super excited to talk about because it's one of my favorite subjects. And Cozy, we had an absolute banger conversation on your side. What was it that we discussed?
Yeah, we talked about Mirage and all the cards in this week's Spotlight, and it was good to break those down, the decks that they work in. We also talked about the top 10 cards right now in July. Alex, you had some spicy picks. Goodness, I loved it. And we had all the conversations around the Conquerors event, the first official event for Marvel Snap coming tomorrow, man. And you're participating. I'll be commentating and hosting the event, and it's just a blast, buddy.
Yeah, I can't wait to get started in the Conquest. And to be honest with you, I think I might just have to bring out something spicy and get that dub. We got to get that Spectrum variant. It's actually a really nice variant, honestly. Super nice one. Regardless, Cozy, let's get started with our first topic of today, which is going to be the best decks to take into the Infinity Conquest. Now, Infinity Conquest is opening up this week, and we got a bit of an extended opportunity to play some Infinity Con. We get 2 weeks of it, right?
Yeah, it's going to be... I'm just amped because I feel like it's by far and away the biggest challenge in Snap, right? It doesn't even come close. It's something that gets me sweating, and I enjoy to do that every now and then. Gold Conquest to me has become kind of dude, everyone with meme decks, right? Not to say it's easy, but it's become easier per se. Infinity is it's tough. It's a tough thing to do. I want more borders, but we talked about the event and how it's going to be in Infinity Conquest. You don't have to give away your spoils, bud. But we got to talk about some of the best decks right now, man. And we don't need to talk too much more about Thanos Control. I think we talked about him enough on the last podcast and then earlier on this podcast. But that's got to be one of the main offenders that I would say, if you know how to operate, you got to take it.
Absolutely. I mean, Thanos Control is going to be one of the absolute top ones, and we'll flash it on the screen here quickly. But yeah, this will be one of the ones that you're going to want to take if you want a consistent opportunity to really have a deck that just answers to pretty much everything, just overall does really well, has an incredible win rate. Oh yeah, it's one of them for sure. But there are so many other decks that you can take. If you don't have Thanos, you're not out of luck, don't worry. And I'm actually going to start us off here, Cozy, with a deck that I think is one of the most free-to-play friendly decks that absolutely slaps in Conquest. And that's Sauron Shuri. Shuri is such a damn good card. It was in your top 10, and rightfully so. And I think that this deck really does do well because it's relatively inexpensive. It doesn't have Series 5 cards, Series 4 cards. It just has what you need to get those wins. And I mean, it's for the audio listeners, you're running Sunspot, Zero, Ebony Maw. You have Armor, Lizard, Sauron, Shuri Enchantress, Typhoid Mary, Taskmaster, Red Skull, and She-Hulk. A very well-rounded list. I personally like this list because I feel like it has multiple win conditions, although it does really rely on, like, did I draw Shuri on turn 4? But it also benefits from the Sauron on turn 3. There's a lot to love about this deck here. Cozy, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I like it a lot. I think it's cool because it has a bunch of variants as well. Like, that's probably the best dependable list, if you will. Sometimes in Infinity Conquest, you need to be surprising, which is where, like, I don't think Captain Marvel's in there anymore. But I gotta say, man, I just did a Wheel of Snap with Ben Brode. The most wild time I've ever had playing this dang game. And listen, I poo-pooed a little bit on Vision. I was like, we got Vision, and I was like, man, he stinks. I just think that in Conquest, though, he won so much for us. And getting him double value as that 14, you have enough power kind of going to your deck anyway here. So he's like a cool slottable option. Even though he doesn't feel great, his best performance is going to be in a Shuri deck, especially if you go up against Magic, man. If you find yourself in a Magic, which is everywhere, you now have like multiple turns to take advantage of him, right? So I like him in there. I think you could do the Twin Suns thing and have the Phoenix Force option. And so like you have base Shuri and then also these work great.
Absolutely. Yeah, there are definitely some increasingly complex Shuri-based lists. You're seeing Destroy Nimrod based lists running Shuri, right? We could even talk about those eventually. I mean, those decks are really starting to make a comeback as well, and Shuri's a major component of that. And I mean, nothing does what Shuri does. And I think that what really attracts me to this particular deck is the fact they're so free to play friendly without having any Series 4 or 5 cards. So that is definitely one. Cozy, hit us with a deck that you take in Infinite Conquest.
Yeah, so listen, this deck, I made a guide on it right when, what's his name? 2099 came out, right? And to me, it was really good, but it was losing to one particular deck, and that was Bounce. And the deck in question, the one I'm talking about, might be a little bit of an outdated graphic. Big Stat Flood, the Stature deck, the good cards, right? This deck, the only problem it had was going up against Bounce at the time. But now that that's gone, this deck just slaps, buddy. It just slaps. Iron Lad's fantastic. You can put Legion in here now, man. This deck with Legion is insane for the variants that you have. You have Luke Cage to protect you. You have disruption methods. You have a ton of stats going out. And then with Legion, you have a lot of cards like Stature, like Miles Morales, to take advantage of these locations. So Big Stat Flood, by far one of my favorite, and it's that list if you don't know. Korg, Luke Cage, Zabu Jeff, Silk Polaris, Darkhawk, Shang-Chi, Miles, Rockslide, Stature, and Black Bolt.
I love the inclusion of Silk there. Now, Silk's actually a card that I don't have. And I'm looking forward to getting soon in a Spotlight Cash. How do you love Silk? Because like in my version of the Bull Stature list, I'm often running like Nebula, for instance. Yeah. And I'm just running less 2-drops, right? But Silk for you, I mean, you seem to be a pretty big believer of Silk. I mean, it is a 2/5 stat line.
Me and I think it's Dara, the only ones that I know that like Silk a lot. Listen, I think she's great right now in this lockdown kind of area that she's in. She just works. Yes, you have to get used to her. She is a card that takes a long time, not a long time, but multiple games to understand. It's a 2/5. It can get into tough to reach locations. If she goes into, let's say, one of those flooded lanes or into Sanctum, she's locked. If she doesn't, you can have ways to kind of force her to be locked as well. I enjoyed the card. I think that you can play her without committing to a lane, which is kind of nice as well. In that list, I have her because of the pure stat value. But you definitely, the ones nowadays, I would probably replace her with Legion in that particular list. But very good card.
I do like that Stature deck a lot. I think it's one of the most disrespected decks in Marvel Snap right now. It performs, and as I said, I do like the inclusion of Silk. Because if you can just add stats, like pure stats, why wouldn't you? And it's not like Titania. It's not going to jump on the other side. Don't worry. It's always staying on your side of the board. So I'm all for it. Now, it would not be right for me not to talk about Destroy. Destroy is, in terms of percentage played, one of the most popular decks in Marvel Snap right now. And it just does exactly what it needs to do. I mean, Destroy straight up, and you're going to see the graphic on the screen here. You're going to see a Destroy deck that's running your Deadpool, Nova, Yondu, Bucky Barnes, Carnage, Wolverine, Killmonger, Venom, Sabretooth, Deathlock, Null, and Death. These are the absolute go-to forever present Destroy cards. There is nothing fancy about this deck. Unlike this Carnage variant that's on the middle of the screen, which we have to cut away from the deck to actually just showcase. This is an absolutely incredible variant. I can't get over it. But honestly, Destroy's back. It's just incredibly consistent. It's a ton of fun to play. No one's playing Armors. Armor's just not in the meta right now for whatever reason. So Destroy is just having a heyday.
Yeah, so I think, here's the thing. Destroy is lower on the percentage win rate, but that's also because it is a swing deck. Things can happen kind of crazy with it. I think the Nimrod one getting popular is great for the base core destroy because now there's options and things that can happen. Altogether, I don't know if I would bring Pure Destroy into Infinity Conquest, like for the tournament, right? I don't know if I would just... It can be over the course of 5 matches. You can have bad luck, right? You can have things go bad. But you're right, nobody's playing the counters to it. And this thing just pumps out the stats, like really pumps it out. It's a very, very strong deck, and I'm excited that it is getting strong. And the crazy thing is, Alex, it's going to get even better because Dakin's coming out and all the other destroy stuff, right? So to think where it's at now and where it's going to keep getting, it's what I play when I want to have fun in Snap too. I think it's just like a thrilling deck, right? Like Negative Surfer is a really good deck, but it's not one I'm going to mention today either because when it's bad, but man, the high thrills are just, it's so fun. And I think Destroy offers that personally, man. Definitely solid list here. For me, the next list, it's crazy that cards just continue to get disrespected at times, And for whatever reason, man, Sarah Control, Sarah Miracle, whatever you want to call it, the deck has just performed now for, since January at a strong level. And I like it probably more than ever because of Scarlet Witch's addition in the deck and throwing off the Magic players. Or when you have the right cards in your hand, you take advantage of the limbo out there, right? So like you then have Sarah out and you could just dump insane amounts of cards. Sarah Control is such a safe option. And if I was participating in the event, probably with a little tweaking, the one that I would take in.
Sarah is always just going to be a card that provides you with the ability to handle any situation. Like on aggregate, it's the deck that has one of the most even matchups across the board. I feel like I say it all the time. It never feels out of a game. It always feels like it has an answer to every given situation. And it even traditionally used to have Scarlet Witch. Like Scarlet Witch isn't even that new. It used to use Scarlet Witch, but now it just makes even more sense because of the prevalence of magic. So yeah, Cozy, that's an absolutely fantastic pick. And realistically, like if you're the average player, right? If you're the average player, Sarah Control represents a very good launching point into Infinity Conquest, not just because it's competitive, but also because I think it teaches fundamentally like good Marvel Snap strategy. I think it makes you a better player.
Yeah, we've spoken on the podcast about it, and right now, the counter game is so important for it. I think that having in this deck list, we've got Nova, Kitty Pryde, Angela, Zabu, Witch, Mysterio, Hitmonkey, and Bishop, the Lethal 3, Killmonger, Shang-Chi, Enchantress, Sarah. So, like, the thing that's crazy about this deck is Angela and Kitty go super high. That's condition number 1. Condition number 2 is the Mysterio, Bishop, Hitmonkey. Put them all in one lane. Doesn't really matter. Just go as high as you want. And then you have Shang-Chi and Enchantress to just completely take away and have that surprise card, and you end up winning, right? Like, that's kind of how it works. You just have to kind of win one lane with this deck, and there's a lot of ways to do it because you have the counter cards, too. It feels great going up against a deck that does all this cool crap, and then you're just like, cool. I've got the counter, right? Like, and you never feel like you're waiting on draw for this deck either. Not getting Sarah, I guess, can be disappointing, but the deck is consistent, bud. And like you said, you had Mysterio on your top 10 earlier. Very, very good deck.
Absolutely. And we would not be doing justice if we didn't talk about High Evo. I think High Evo still represents such a very straightforward deck to play that really doesn't have that many bad matchups. It's just a constant performer. It has this consistency to it that like it puts points down. It can cheat out incredible amounts of damage with Storm, a Cyclops. The power play of Hulk near the end of the game is huge. It just does what you need to do. And has a very consistent play pattern. And much like Sarah Control, like really, there's not that many decks that it really suffers against. Like it has some good matchups, some worse matchups. But ultimately, I think High Evolutionary is one of those decks that can get you all the way through.
Yeah, and you can play like the base list. You can also just play the newer list with the magic, and you can have the Limbo, and it's good for the control. Throw Legion in there. Like there's spicy takes on it now too, which is what works in its favor a lot. Also, the Jane Job version kind of disappeared, but it's still like really a ton of power, man. Like there's a lot of RNG in it at times, but it's still very consistent. It's got cards in there that if they were to Spider Ham you, you're like okay with it, right? And so with the drop of Spider-Man, I think there's Spider Ham, there's honorable mentions that we can talk about. Like these are like balanced as well. The main offenders of like just good decks you guys have heard for a while. Alex, what about like what's your spicy kind of your sleeper deck option that you would take in to Infinity Conquest if you wanted to surprise, man?
If I wanted to surprise, it would be something with Legion. A really well done Legion deck, I think, does that. I've been experimenting a ton with Legion, and I'm a firm believer in the card. And I mean, Legion's one of those cards that, yes, okay, listen, there's RNG there. You're banking on RNG, but you'd be surprised how often it can absolutely work in your favor. So if I'm looking to do something really spicy, I could lean towards Legion, most certainly.
Dude, the thing about Legion is if you don't have good locations, you get them on the next one, and then you take them for the 8 cubes or the 4 cubes or whatever. That's what's so spicy. I gotta say, knock it until you try it, but Hela, whether it's Witch Tribunal or not, the stats don't lie. Hela is good in Conquest, and it's because of the lack and the disrespect for bringing in Cosmo and things like that. Like, there's lists now where Hela doesn't need to just get the Invisible Woman Gambit off because you have Morbiuses with Modocs. You have ways to pump out just massive power. Even like Ghost Rider can fit into some of these lists. Gambit is a 3/3. He's working into Hela now. I'm telling you, the data, I think it's only like 400 games, but it's like 60%. 58% win rates with a Hela deck. I will tell you, I lost one with a good deck the other day, and I was like, damn, this is crazy how much variance. You can also get into lockdown locations, right? There's stuff about it that's like kind of slept on there. So Hela is like a spicy option. Don't know how it would do over the course of 5 games, but I like it.
I like the Hela pick, and I'll tell you why, Cozy. Going through stats, I mean, Hela is one of those cards. I believe it might be the highest win rate card in Marvel Snap when it gets actually played. When it drops on the board, this card, more than any other, actually wins the game. It's just sometimes getting there can be tricky, right? Like, because there's a lot of retreats, there's lots of getting, screwed on your draws. But when Hela drops, Hela wins.
And like, this is just like one of the mini lists, right? But in this particular Conquest data here, dude, 60% win rate, 1,400 battles, and you got things like Lockjaw in here. You have Jubilee, Hela, they got the Chavez to push it down. It's crazy to see these stats, man. And there's Living Tribunal versions, which is another sleeper deck that I would run. I think it's pretty strong at the moment with its dependability. So Hela, this one has Swarm, Calling Wing, Lockjaw, Gambit, Moon Knight, Dracula, Jubilee, Hela, Chavez, Magneto, Giganto, Infinite. Yeah, but a lot of good decks to run in this Infinity Conquest, and I think when people watch the Conquerors event, there's going to be way more that come to light, too. This is typically when the sweaty decks that people have been hiding come out.
Yeah, and it's going to be fun. It's just going to be a lot of fun because you're going to see a lot of different takes on even just the meta ones. No, it's just very few people are just going to bring straight up like copy paste meta high evolutionary Thanos, whatever. You're going to see some really spicy stuff, some interesting iterations on these existing archetypes that might actually ripple across the meta for, a couple weeks to come until the very next OTA. And one thing I'll know, you know what, Cozy? I don't want to end this segment without talking about bounce. Like, bounce isn't gone, but like, it took a hit, didn't it?
I quickly tried to mention it without like reading off a list or anything, but yeah, dude, bounce is still good. It's fine. Yeah. It's not like it's not the top tier option. But now that it's not, people aren't doing as much as the Invisible Woman Killmonger combo, so then it is, right? So it's still very good. I just think for a Kitty Pryde list at this point with Hitmonkey, I would be running the Miracle version rather than Bounce personally, but it's still very good.
Yeah, so you lean towards like that Sarah side is going to be the Sarah control side. Absolutely. Okay. We want to give it its respect, and I do agree with you for what it's worth 100%. And that takes us to our next topic of discussion, which is the best turn 1 and 2 openers in Marvel Snap. Now, Cozy and I, we've discussed so many times on the Snapchat, the idea of making the early game very relevant again in Marvel Snap. There have been times where like it's all about that turn 5 and 6, which is exactly what Hela likes to do. You can almost skip every single turn with Hela and just do Modoc into Hela top deck, right? And then you win the game. But sometimes you really need to make sure that you're clapping someone on turn 1 and 2. So we're going to talk about some of our favorite combos in the game. And Cozy, I'll let you get it started.
Yeah, but so I know we've done this like back in the past. And I like that it's come back up because, it's not just your Iceman Scorpions anymore, right? Like the metagame is evolving in a lot of ways, right? So to me, the combos that stick out are the ones that if you get them, like Zabu, Psylocke, Mr. Negative, you're like, all right, this is going to be a good time with this deck that I'm trying to aim and play, right? We just talked to Kitty Pryde. To me, if you have Angela and Kitty Pryde in your starting deck, dude, you're just off to a good start running. Like you already have such a huge advantage of building up points with just those 2 cards, and it's a banger, man. It's definitely a very powerful way to open up Snap, man. But I got definitely more. Hit me with one of yours.
I'm going to cheat a little bit because I'm going to call out one card that basically has like 3 different combos
I already
right
know
off the
what you're
bat. You know
saying.
who I'm going
Yeah,
to.
yeah.
I know.
I have it on my
In
list.
beta, in an early Snapchat, says, yeah, it was one of your absolute favorite cards and it's 0. Tell me if there's better combinations in the game than 0 Lizard, 0 Ebony Maw, 0 Titania. I mean, you can even go as far as to like 0 Maximus if you have to skip turn 2. Like, this card just slaps.
0 Silk. Yeah, like he's getting more cards to take advantage of there. And like, I just love him. He's one of the few one costs that like even the 0 Red Skull on turn 6, like playing him late, you're like, oh, this is great, you know, or putting in that one, you know, separate lane. Now that we have Jean Greys or we have things that you need to get quick, high power, right? They play a Storm. Bam, hit him with the 0 Lizard. Dude, that's hard to beat. That's hard to beat. So I definitely think will always remain one of the best one costs in the game. Definitely love him there. I'm glad you mentioned him because he was like the next one I was going to talk about. Bast, right? We all know Bast is fantastic. 2 different combos with Bast. I think if you have in your opening hand or you're able to play Bast into Zabu is always crazy. You know there's just going to be good stuff, or obviously like Bast with Iron Man in there. But also Bast with we could list so many cards. But Hood. I love Bast and Hood because you're able to play both of them right off the bat. You immediately get huge value out of that Hood. If you're looking to get what, a 1/9 at that point, that's bonkers. A 1/9 plus the Bast, you're at a 2/10. Just crazy stats. I mean, that's right up there with the 0 Ebony Maw play. And so, how can you not love it?
Yeah, absolutely. And if we're going to stay on Hood Viper. Like, Hood on turn 1, Viper turn 2 is still an absolutely filthy combo because not only are you sending over, you know, that negative across the board, but you've played 3 and you're still holding on to that beautiful, beautiful demon, right? So still one of my favorite combinations and one that we don't actually see a lot anymore. I was hoping with Sentry getting that buff, we'd see more Viper out there, but Viper still kind of is a little disrespected. I like it. I know you're like, but I like Viper.
Yeah, there's just not enough cards to take advantage. I do like Viper, and I hope there's more that we can, you know, take advantage of. You know, sticking to one cost, man, I feel like Korg into Zabu, you're never playing Korg without like 5 other 4 costs in there. So Korg into Zabu, you're just like, bam, bam, I know what I'm doing. Like, and then it just like transitions so well. Like Rock Slide, Iron Lad, Darkhawk. Like, you just play so many different cards into this. Agent Coulson for that. Like, literally, obviously, like almost any deck or card into Zabu feels good because you have your game plan going down. That's why he's got to be in there. What do you think about, I'm going to have a sleeper pick here. It's the same with Zabu, but I think getting Howard on turn 1 with the Zabu is like my sleeper pick, dude. This is like your rest of your game, you know your draw. Zabu's there to discount maybe a Jubilee or a Lad. Like, it's a great opening, man.
You just want to put this variant on the screen. Like, it's still one of my, I know you do. Like, yeah, so yeah, this Dan Hip variant, it's one of the best. It's easily one of the best. Yeah. And you know, Howard the Duck is a card that I still have not gotten. I don't have Howard the Duck yet, so I can't speak from experience. But I gotta tell you, I'm a little jealous because I know you're a firm believer in the Duck, and getting it on turn 1 must be an absolutely fantastic feeling because like it's pure gravy from there, right?
Yeah.
It must feel just like getting Uatu on turn 1. It's just a beautiful thing. Except no, Uatu's absolute garbage. It's, you know what, I tried an M'Baku Uatu deck. I couldn't do it, Cozy. I tried.
Too much meme in one deck. It just like,
it was too much meme.
Yeah. Every man has his limits, man. What about we've talked enough about him in the podcast, but I gotta say, guys, Mind Stone turn 1 into 2 stones that could be like soul and heck, even reality and or space, even time, right? It's like, dang, what an opening. You're thinning the deck. You're getting power out there. You're getting your stuff generating. It's by far at the moment one of the best plays.
Oh, without question. And what's crazy about that is like it's easy to forget that when you have a Thanos deck, you have a larger deck. The chances of getting Mind Stone turn 1 is so much harder. Like, it's so much lower than a standard deck. Like, you're not getting, you know, usually, you know, you have a much higher chance to pull whatever one drop in 12 cards, but Thanos is so much larger. So that card, it matters so much, and you just cycle through your deck so fast. It's such a huge advantage.
Dude, you know what's great? You always talk about how you love the importance of the early game. And it doesn't come close, I think, ever than right now because of Legion. Say what you will about the craziness of this chaos of Storm and these lockdown decks. Dude, you have to play cheap cards now or you're going to lose. Like, a lot of decks will have your number if you're just hoping for the, like, let's say the Hella Modok. You just lose to a lockdown deck most of the time because they close off a lane. They've already done what they need to do, right? How cool is it that turn 1 and 2 matter so much now?
I love it. I love the fact that they matter. Like I've always been someone that I want to play on tempo. I want to play turn 1, 2, 3. I want to consistently play. When I'm skipping turns, when I have something, it bothers me. It actually bothers me. Like I want to play. I want to have an opportunity to affect the board state every turn. So I'm all for this. I'm all for it, honestly. And I mean, listen, I love Legion. I absolutely love Legion. And you're right. It punishes sometimes people that like, they sit there, they don't play cards, they're waiting for their big Galactus play or something, and then all of a sudden there's squirrels everywhere, right? And they didn't expect Legion to drop, or they don't expect the locations to change. Like, I had a play with Legion where someone was basically playing a Rocks and Hawks deck, and you take Isle of Silence and you just throw it across.
So nasty, dude.
It's so nasty. So I like that pick as well. Yeah, but the early turns matter, and I'm gonna go back to like one of the just tried, tested, and true combos. And honestly, I think armor has to make a comeback at some point. But like Sunspot armor, Nebula armor, like we have all these really high value one drops. Like you don't need armor with Kitty Pryde because of its dodging capabilities. But like Nebula is still an amazing card that people honestly do not appreciate as much as I think they should. And they're just sitting there without armor. We just finished talking about how good Killmonger is, and I think armor plus Sunspot, armor plus Nebula is still a really strong combo as well.
Yeah.
But it's not going to like cripple your opponent unless they're playing Destroy. But really, it like protecting your own board, I think it's still valuable.
It feels great knowing that you don't have to worry about Killmonger or Shang-Chi. It just feels good. Like you just don't have to worry about it, man. And so yes, I agree. Armor is disrespected at the moment because it's like, it's that slot where it's like, you play Jeff, you play, it's tough. It's a tough slot to fill. 2 costs. I was just talking to Brode about this. 2 costs is such a fun cost zone. There's so many competitive options now, and it's cool that it's getting to that. Mirage is going to continue to add to that. So I love it, buddy. So yeah, great best 1 and turn 2 openers. So different than what it was even months back.
Yeah, it's and we didn't even talk about Spider-Ham. Like Spider-Ham is another card that's absolutely incredible,
Spider-Man.
Right? Yeah, Iceman. There's so many good early game opportunities, and I love it. I'm all for it. And that's going to bring us into the most underrated cards in Marvel Snap for July 2023. There are just some cards that remain disrespected, Cozy, and it's enough. Enough's enough, and we're here to set the record straight. Some cards are disrespected for a reason. Don't get me wrong, but we've dug into the stats, and there's going to be some cards with impressive win rates that you probably honestly didn't really think. And I'm not saying go and throw these into every single deck you can, but there's going to be a place for some of these cards to shine, and we're going to talk about them right now. Cozy, there's got to be a card out there that you think is absolutely underappreciated, absolutely disrespected. Hit me with it.
All right, so I didn't go by the data. I kind of went by the heart on this one, which I like because I want to see the data and then the heart. Here, my options are ones that I play that I don't see getting played, and I like them. I think they have their purpose. Now, obviously, we just talked about Killmonger. I get it, but for whatever reason, I really feel like Nightcrawler is good right now. He's a fine card. It is a worse Jeff in a lot of ways. But the fact of the matter is, I almost had this as a good 1-2 opening. Dude, there's decks I have designed where I have Nightcrawler Jeff. And immediately, they have no idea where I'm going with these cards. I'm able to combine them with other cards that I'll talk about in a moment. Lockdown is, say what you will, Lockdown is so big right now. Even Control Thanos, they play a Time Stone. You're like, okay, so this could be Pro X here. So then you kind of you can move these cards a little bit. I think Nightcrawler, although isn't great, is underrated.
The thing I love about Nightcrawler and Jeff too is you can throw them much more willy-nilly into like the unrevealed locations early in the game.
Yeah.
Like I think that's an advantage. Honestly, that's an unspoken advantage. You get Nightcrawler, you throw it into the unrevealed location. If it's bar with no name, you just move them.
Yep.
If it's Death's Domain, you just win. Like it's just, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Unless they play their Bucky. But like it gives you a lot of opportunities to just kind of be a little more aggressive in the early game in ways that might not be expected. And I love the way you mentioned Prof X, because if like usually you can kind of anticipate where that Prof X might be dropping. The move reveals first. So the move reveals and then the card plays. So then like you can actually take them off guard with the Nightcrawler.
But then on top of that too, it's that if you have Pro X, Nightcrawler's great to cap off a lane. Like he kind of works in several ways. And Alex, I know I kicked off with this. Let me just go into the next one because the conversation fits really well here. It is going to be Jean Grey. I get it that she is not popular at the moment. I do think she's highly underrated. I've been playing her into a lot of decks. Like I have a Sarah Miracle deck that has her in there because why not? But the thing is, you can't use her as just a pure control option. It doesn't work like we thought. If you have that top row dedicated to below 3 cost, That's where she does shine. I'm telling you, man, a Nightcrawler Jeff Jean Grey opening is awesome. Absolutely awesome, because there's other cards that you can cap off there. And so she's one that she's going to continue to get better. She completely messes up things like Destroy decks. You can completely mess up what they're trying to pull off if they're doing some Storm Legion BS. There's a lot of combos in her, man. This is such an untapped card.
I gotta get back to Jean Grey. I stepped away from Jean Grey for a bit, like with Legion coming out and stuff like that. Listen, I went all in on Legion. I love that card. So like Jean Grey, I did really like. I do like it. And I think you're right. I think that Jean Grey is being a little disrespected. I think that Bounce also disrespect. Like it was the worst meta for Jean Grey to come out. Like the meta was just not in Jean Grey's favor. And as Bounce kind of tapers off and other things kind of come into play, I think Jean's going to make a comeback. And I'm looking forward to the Cozy Snap Jean list, which I'm most certainly going to try and experiment with. Cozy, I got a couple cards to talk about.
Hit me.
Got a couple cards to talk about. There's one that I know you love, and I love doing this. I love bringing cards I know. Like, I know Cozy's going to agree with me here. This card is a 62% win rate when played. And this is going to surprise people because it is one of the cards that gets every one of my decks that I feature. They're like, why don't you just cut that card? People say cut that card all the time. I cannot believe it. It's Onslaught.
Oh.
Why are we cutting Onslaught from deck after deck, whether it be Patriot, whether it be ongoing lists? Do you have any idea how many people tell me to cut Onslaught? I'll post a deck, it'll have Onslaught in it, and they're like, cut Onslaught. I'm like, what? No.
I don't think I ever play Onslaught, and I'm like, I could lose this game. If I play Onslaught, I'm like, you're done, buddy. I hope you stay. Onslaught is one of my... And I love that he's getting more popular, man. Like, at times I'm like, can he be a 6A? You know, what do you do here? He's just good. He's a good card that just amplifies. He surprises. The way ongoing cards work in this game, you're able to build power in other lanes. So I think the biggest thing about Onslaught is the reason why we love Magneto is you're able to affect multiple lanes with one play. And Onslaught does that just about better than any card.
It's without question. Like, it's just an unbelievable card that I love playing. And I feel like we're the only ones that love Onslaught. Like, I feel like this card is one of the absolute most disrespected, and it does not deserve it. And if it goes to 6-8 power, like, I think if it gets more of a spotlight, I think it'll completely destroy stuff. Like, it'll start to really go nuts. So, I mean, maybe they're keeping it in check on purpose. Maybe they're keeping it under the radar. You know what? I'll continue to farm Infinity tickets with my Onslaught. I'll happily do that.
Yeah,
Cozy. Hit us with another one, my friend.
Yeah, so hey, I'm gonna just keep in the rhythm of Jean Grey because it's what I've been playing a lot as, and it's also so good in this meta right now. Thanos, bounce decks, miracles, a lot of flooding going on. Think back to what I was saying about the opening of Jeff and whatnot. And best of all is because of the decks you're playing against these days, you can play it early even, and it just doesn't matter because they're going to have a hard time. I hinted at it last Snapchat. It's Mojo, baby. It's Mojo. I think he's underrated. Now, he's not some S-tier card, but we're talking underrated cards. He's a 2-8. A 2-8 that if you play in a Jean Grey lane, have fun. You're probably going to get it activated. Or you could play it into where they're spamming their Thanos cards. There's a lot of ways to utilize Mojo that I'm just loving with the card. The value is absolutely huge. And so I got to sneak this in there with the Jean Grey combo.
I feel like this is an attack on me because, like, I feel like I was just on stream talking about how I never play Mojo, and I feel like I'm in the wrong. Like, I never play this card. I think this might be one of the least cards I've ever... I think I've played Angel more than I've played Mojo. So I think this is on me. I think it's on... Listen, I'm sad to admit this.
It makes sense, though. Like, I would say a lot of people don't play Mojo, and not that he shouldn't be in every list, but for instance, man, I had him in a Moon Girl list for the Miracle deck, the turn 7, right? What's better than one Mojo? 2, you're going 7 turns, you know they're going to be filling these lanes up. Like, why not, right? Like, why not play more Mojo? He's got to be with certain cards, but in those cards, man, he's great. And the meta also has to support flood decks for him to be great.
Absolutely. So what you're saying is if Dazzler becomes absolutely S tier, then Mojo is a required card. All right, I got two. One's a quick one and one's the actual discussion. We need to shout out Sauron. Sauron, when played, runs a 63% win rate. We know it's a good card. We call it Sauron Shuri, but no one talks about Sauron the way they talk about Shuri, right? No one does. But that card is such a key cog to that wheel. It needs a shout out. That's an honorable mention. But the one I really want to talk, I got a couple really spicy ones. Cody,
Same here.
that
I've
are
saved a
so
couple.
Disrespected.
Okay.
So disrespected. At a 62% win rate when played. 62%. Swarm.
Oh, yeah.
Could you believe that Swarm runs that high of a win rate? And it's partially because of the Nakia buff, honestly. Nakia really helped out Swarm, but Swarm runs a 62% win rate when played. Did you like it's I don't think that many people realize that. Like this card really slaps.
It makes sense because you're not really playing it unless you get the multiple copies. And when you get the multiple copies, it is just filthy. It's filthy. You get several O3s, man. Like you we're always like, man, Lizard's a 2-5. Oh, damn, right? But then if you discard the Swarm, all of a sudden you have a 0-6. A 0-6, right? Like, if you talk about the stats, and then you can continue to abuse that even more, right? So, yeah, I believe it, dude. He's so good. Discard had a small little shadow because of Spider-Ham. Spider-Ham did get nerfed, which means Discard is still going to be a great deck.
Yeah, I played some Discard recently. It still feels like it's missing just something. I feel like it's just not competing the way some of the other decks are, but I mean, we're coming up to a season. August is going to throw some wrenches in for Discard and for Destroy, so things will change rather quickly. But I want to talk about Swarm because I don't think people respect Swarm as much as they should be. Cozy, I have another one I want to bring out quickly. Another super disrespected one. This was a card that I guarantee people don't realize win as often as it does. And it's similar to Storm, where I think a lot of the value is coming from the recent, not so recent, but the buff to Collector. It's fitting into a lot of Collector decks. Same way Sentinel buffs Collector. I just said the name by accident. I meant to say Swarm buffing Collector. It's Sentinel.
Yep.
Sentinel is literally like a beginner card that people completely disrespect. 59% win rate right now on Sentinel when played because it's being played in Sarah Control sees some Sentinel. You see Collector being played in conjunction with Sentinel. It's a 2-3. But it's a very consistent 2-3. In fact, I think this card is good enough that it holds Master Mold back because you're giving them a good card. Yes, you're disrupting their hand, but there's nothing to scoff at this Sentinel.
Yep. No, I love Sentinel. You always have a card to play. What's not bad? What's good? It's great. And then Quinjet on top of that, having a 1-3 that is consistent at that point. Super solid stuff. Love that you included Sentinel because I do think he is disrespected. And even myself, I'll be like, I'll cut him. Right when I'm like looking at decks, like, he's not sexy. He's the furthest thing from it. No. But he's good. He's definitely very, very good. Another 2 cost to keep us in the cost area. And finally, she's getting some love, man. Like, she was getting 0 play. Now she's brought into practically all the list. And it's Psylocke. I think people realize that with 5 cost cards, you get such an advantage by playing them even a turn early. And that's been her biggest use. We're seeing her in Destroy to get Nimrod. We're seeing her in Thanos list to get all the 5 costs out. Wave and Electro is all people used to talk about with Ramp. But both of those come with a penalty. Psylocke doesn't, right? So, like, you have to be a bit more careful. But you can only play 1 card with Electro. Wave, you give the opportunity to your opponent. Love Psylocke, dude. I'm glad she is getting a bit more love, but she's still underrated.
Psylocke is a card I truly like, and it's crazy. There's a bit of a movement right now on Reddit and on Twitter to buff Psylocke. People want to see Psylocke get more power. Yeah, and I was kind of surprised. I was like, you know what? Like, I can see it. I can see Psylocke being a 2-2.
Oh,
it's not crazy.
Oh, it'd be great, dude. I would play it all the time. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, yeah, because I saw that. I was like, huh, Psylocke, eh? Like, I actually think Psylocke's pretty good where she is. But then again, what do I know about Marvel Snap?
Dude, yeah, and into Cerebro 2 decks, man, where you could, like, kind of cheat it out and get even more play. Yeah, like, get her out on turn, 5, you get a 6, you can play your combos there. Then on turn 6, you go wild. Yeah, good. I love it, dude. I absolutely love the Psylocke pick.
Another one I want to talk about, and this is absolutely one of my favorites. I got 2 more. And I have to talk about this card because this is a card that I feel like I see only in my videos and nowhere else. Cozy, I'm going to challenge you. Eventually, you got to use this card. Okay, promise me eventually that you'll use this card.
Wait, let me guess. I'm gonna go. Can I guess?
Yeah.
I'm gonna guess, and I want to guess because I feel like I know you good enough. And on purpose, I was making a deck not long ago that I left this person out because I wanted to put the new OTA card, and people were like, the disrespect. I did talk about her though. I'm telling you, I think I know my boy Alex. Are you gonna talk about Wolfsbane?
Oh, I can't believe. How do you do this? It is truly remarkable that you can do this. It is 100% Wolfsbane.
I knew it.
It's crazy that you, like, honestly, buddy, like, I don't know. You read me like a book sometimes.
I know you.
Yeah, Wolfsbane is absolutely insane. And it's a 3-1. And people are like, oh, it's a 3-1. What I've done to Wolfsbane, I got, like, there's so many examples of Wolfsbane getting above 30 power. like, it is one of the best vertical cards in Marvel Snap that people just completely disrespect. It has a 59% win rate when played. And this card sees almost no play at all. It is like, oh, I played that in Zoo in Pool 1, like, LOL. I don't play those cards anymore. It's like some of the best cards in the game are coming from Pool 1, like Iron Man. And, like, Wolfsbane's no different. Iron Man's better than Wolfsbane, but Wolfsbane is still pretty damn good. And like in very specific archetypes, I love this card, and it bothers me that it gets the amount of disrespect that it does.
Love the pick. What's the second one?
Okay, this you want me to go? This is the reach. This is like a really big reach.
Okay.
Okay, it's 4 cost. Slides just under Shang-Chi. It's Crossbones. Crossbones, when played, and this, okay, I know you're, Cozy's like, come on, Alex, I want to hear your sell on this, bud. Like, Cozy's like already so skeptical, right? All right, Cozy's rubbing his eyes like, oh, come on, Alex, I want to hear this. All right, so if for what it's worth, this card has a 58% win rate when played, which is not too shabby. I don't think a lot of people would have thought that Crossbones when played has a 58% win rate. The problem is that it only wins in 54% of decks. So I think the ability to play it when you're winning might actually be a harder compromise than people might expect. And so we just finished talking about the best turn 1 and 2 plays in Marvel Snap. And I wanted to include Crossbones because Crossbones is a card that disproportionately benefits from a very strong early game. If you have options to play and it's not just, obviously we have the Mr. Fantastic play, which is really great for Crossbones. But if you're putting up 8 power that can't be Shang-Chi'd, it's really hard to deal with this card. Like 8 power is not insignificant.
Yeah, no, that's the best part about it is you're playing a card that you know is safe, right? Like it can't. I think my 2 things with Crossbones is like it's like turn 6. Crossbones when he's in your deck at the first few turns, fantastic. Him coming on like turn 6, you're like, and like I need to play him here, but I'm trying to win that location, so I can't play him there, right? I'll say the best compliment I can give him is when it's something like Triskelion or something, and I get him, I'm like, oh. And I play him. Like, yeah, I'm like, oh, yeah, I like this. Like, this is nice, but I'm not going to include him in the decks. I mean, dude, it is something, maybe there's something here. Like, if there's more, like, early game stuff, like Zabu into immediate Crossbones in a lane, you can feel pretty good about a 10 power lane that early.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's no question about it. And it's funny. It's like Zabu had its crazy moment in the sky. Like, where it was absolutely just ridiculously overpowered. Crossbones didn't make a single one of the list. Like Crossbones just couldn't make the cut. Zabu's still one of the best cards in Marvel Snap today. I feel bad for Crossbones, but it technically on paper, it's performing better than people are giving it credit for.
Shang-Chi is just such an interesting card because he controls Marvel Snap, right? Because then you say things get nerfed, right? Like the fact that even in the devs note, it was like Living Tribunal got a small nerf because it's Shang-Chi. It's like, who cares, man? You made him better. Like, it sucks because it's like Crossbones should have way more power for the condition that he has, but then he's Shang-Chi-able. So the best thing he has going for it is a 4/8. I think it's just like his condition. I would just want him to have more power at that point. Like for him, I want more 4/8s. Let me tell you that. But for him, there's just better ways to get that power and to have it met. So it's interesting. Yeah, he's not played for a reason, I guess.
Yeah, but so like again, the golden stat line for 4s is 410. That's just overpowered though, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So it's not the same levels like of an Atuma or Typhoid Mary. So anyways, an interesting point of discussion. Why don't you close us off with a card here?
All right, my last card as we close it out, dude. Not a lot to say on it. Just one that you might see come creep back up, and that's just because ongoing decks are kind of getting back up there. I think Super Scroll is still underrated as a card that you can throw into a lot of decks and just feel great about stealing their Zabu, stealing their Iron Mans that are popping everywhere, their Knolls. You don't have to worry about a big Knoll because you have your own, right? Like, lives and dies with ongoing, going up and down, and control Thanos is so high at the moment, and other ongoing lists are so high. Why not have Super Scroll? So he's my last underrated card.
I love the pick, and honestly, I love the variants. Super Scroll has some of the best variants. Like these artists are working overtime with the effects on these cards. But regardless, Cozy, I want to say thank you so much for joining us today, and for all those that support Cozy Nice content. We absolutely appreciate you guys. And honestly, Cozy, this is just such a pleasure getting to talk about our favorite game together. We've been doing this for a long time, but it's before it's gonna be a full year of the Snapchat.
We're going on 40 episodes next week, dude. Wild.
40 weeks, and we haven't missed. We have not missed an episode, so it's great. It's a great time to be a Snapchat listener. Thank you so much for listening, guys. I appreciate you. Check out Cozy's video at the center of the screen, as always. Hitting the like button is the best thing you do to support the channel, and we'll see you on the next Marvel Snapchat episode.